Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Blue Abroad Show. It's 2 in a row. Terry has trusted me after my 35 touches, 10 contested last week with the responsibilities again. And this time, my partner in crime, my Sam Walsh to my Patrick Cripps, is the legend that is Paolo. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm very well on this Monday evening, Pobby. Looking forward to getting stuck into it, even though, well, I mean, the season's done, the trade period's done, but there's still plenty to get through, which is just typical for our club and AFL. So I don't know if you saw, but I think the club posted today, back at it early. I think a few players are back in the gym, namely McGovern and Matt Owie. So the preseason social media posts have already started.
Mate, I can't wait for McGovern to upload a 5-second clip of him just finishing a jog, which got everyone excited last year. Let's run the intro and get straight into it.
What's going on? Fucking today!
Martin's been very impressive every single time.
I saw the Carlton supporters and I thank you for a while. But
Great sense of play in Glasgow. And there's a basic foul. The ball inside 50. Control! He strikes it beautifully. He's got it.
Still gets me up and about that intro. Big shout out to the Premiership members. The names are running across the bottom of the screen. Without you all, this magic would not occur. Big shout out to everyone in chat as well. I can see you're all coming in. Some legends of the group here. Lana, we've got Sandra, we've got Big Paul. Sandra asking what we're arguing about. Manny recognises you from the overnight crowd.
Yeah, he's a good man, Manny. Loves calling in and having a chat about the Magpies, which is always good fun. So it was always a good little bit of banter, toing and froing. So that's what it's all about. Welcome, everyone.
Do you know what I mean? I did enjoy the other day. Someone called you Pablo.
Oh, that's kingy. Yeah.
It changed my life because I was like, do I just call him Pablo for the rest of the freaking
evening? Yeah, he's a South Australian. He bets on South Australian racing, and he's very good with like his NFL punting and stuff. So I thought, oh, may as well get this guy on. He called through, and he's always I don't know why, he's always called me Pablo, and I'm like, well, it's stuck now. So what am I going to do? I can't really change it. It's like that person, when you meet someone for the first time, and then like the 2 or 3 times after it, they get your name wrong, but they kind of get it like close, but they don't get it right, and you don't have the gall to tell them that. Sorry, mate, that's not my name.
Too far in.
You just run with it. You just run with it.
Mate, there's a few of my ex-girlfriends that I called by the wrong name, and I only found out after we split up. So I'll be there. But let's get straight into it. Our first point of agenda today, probably just to back Sandra up. What are we arguing about today? The most hotly contested topic at Carlton. If you mention this, you get absolutely battered in chat, because no matter what you think, if you're pro sauce or anti sauce, it's a heated debate. But Sausage did come out with a little statement, which I thought was a good statement. He said, I've been in a situation at Carlton before. When we first got there, we had to cut the list. In hindsight, we probably cut it too deep, and I can see that now. It probably wasn't fair on Brendan Bolton at the time. We were really relied on not getting a lot of injuries, and we got 1 or 2 injuries to our senior players, and it affected the performances on field as showcased in 2018. So what I thought we'd talk about is that a big thing? Do we think that would have made us get a flag quicker if we didn't? And what situation are we in now? So, Paolo, over to you, my friend.
I think, when you initially go into these things, and I know Sauce was adamant that at the time that he came in, that there was just absolutely no talent on the list. And I think to try to fast track the rebuild and fast track getting these talented players in, he's sort of just gone. He pretty much went all guns blazing, and I think we all brought into that. But the downfall from that was that 2018 season where we just fell off a cliff and only won 2 games, and again the injuries didn't help. But I think he summed it up quite well then. you know, and as I said, hindsight's, there you go. David Perfect just took the words out of my mouth. Hindsight's worth $1 million, isn't it? And it's easy to go back and say, yeah, we probably went a bit too deep. But I mean, I think at the time we all understood. And I think we all got excited by the fact that, you know, these players who were tried and tied were sort of coming off our list and being replaced by these new young players. And Sauce was trying to, I think, and where people were complaining too was that, you know, all these GWS players we're picking up, these salary dump players we're picking up, they were all what Sauce defined as stopgaps, because he knew he'd gutted the squad so much that he had to fill it in with something to develop these younger players. And in turn, he might have actually got something out of guys like Kennedy and Marchbank, and maybe he could have pinched a couple of players that would be there for the next couple of years. So, I mean, look, ultimately, it's easy to say that, you know, he went too deep, but, you know, then you look at the players that aren't there from maybe those 2016 to 2018 years, and you think, geez, maybe we could have filled up those list spots with other players. But, I mean, it was tough on Bolts. That's all I know, and I think Sauce summed that up well. And I think we did him dirty in the end. But ultimately, I mean, the fans had their say and said, "Sorry, man, it's not good enough. You can't win, you know, 2 games out of 20 and then go 1-10 or 1-9, whatever it was, to start 2019 and expect to survive." So, do we keep looking back at this kind of stuff and saying, you know, it's probably just more of a learning curve to say, okay, let's probably not try this thing again. If it ends up happening again, we probably need to be a little bit more conservative with the way we approach these things.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, Andrew's done a brilliant one here, list of all the people. There's some celebrity names there. Whenever Mullet pops up on my screen,
golly.
I have a wry grin. But exactly as Adrian says, if my nana had wheels, she'd be a bike, wouldn't she? I mean, you can't look back in time, but I will say this. A good friend of mine, who you all know, Jim Faz, is a big anti-Sauce guy, right? Massive anti-Sauce. And I've been fielding questions about Sauce ever since that came to light, really, that he was quite critical of him. And I always think it's never been undertaken in the AFL, something of that magnitude.
Correct.
So no one's done it that hardcore per se. And I always think that if you actually go back through, I think the biggest thing, and I agree with what you're saying, hindsight is a wonderful thing. We're all generals after the battle. And this is what annoys me about list managers. We've got 5 years of experience when they're in the AFL. They're picking these players literally on a hunch, on raw data and gut instinct. But if you actually go through Sauce's draftings, and I thought I'd just take a little 5-second foray into it, because I think that's where you've got to judge him. Right?
Yeah, of course.
SPS was the most logical pick ever, right on his money. Right on his money. Every draft pick had him going. Most people had him going just before us, some after. So 5 was right. Fisher was about 10 picks too early. That's turned out all right. McCready right in the situation where you hit or miss them. Paulson, again, hit or miss draft pick. Curry, again, hit and miss draft pick for a player that type of that pick. Dow, logical pick. That top 5, I think every pundit had a different number 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Lob, way too early. That's about 10, but Sauce did explain there was a reason they jumped at him to mirror him up with Dow because they were close. Schumacher and Gala, again, speculative picks. TDK, great pick for where it was based on what he is. Walsh, blind person in out of Beirut, who's picking lava for a living, would have picked Sam Walsh in that draft. Stocker, probably, in my opinion, and most pundits, about 10 picks too early because of the concerns, but you live, you learn. Finbar, speculative again, nothing pick. B-Sauce, again, he's got a famous dad, do you know what I mean? Father, son, people pick these players up. Kem went too late based on the draft predictions. Phil, probably about 30 picks too early. He got that wrong. And Ramsey, again, was undrafted on most people's sheets, but Carlton did it. So really, when you look at that as a hit-to-loss ratio, logically, it's not too bad.
Yeah, I mean, this is where I think list managers do so much, right? I mean, you would assume a lot. I mean, most list managers have. I mean, everyone's got their own IP. Everyone's got their own intellectual property that they kind of use to, develop drafting strategies and develop ways that they can find players for value. But I think ultimately where we have gone wrong is not. It's not the players that we've picked. I mean, it is sometimes it is the players that you pick up, but I think the bigger concern for me in the last 5 to 10 years has been the way we develop and nurture and the standards that are being set from the top of the football club, and then the way that filters down from, board, executive decision making staff, all the way filtering down to, pick 70 on your list. And I think that's where I think that is more of the factor than Sauce going to the draft and making this move, that move, this move, and that move. So, and then you can look back to and we always look back to the 2015 draft and say, well, I mean, you could argue that like it's one of the best draft hands we've seen in the last couple of years. And I know we had pick number 1 and a host of picks inside the first round, but I mean, he nailed Wiedering, nailed Charlie, nailed Harry. Jack was that speculative pick at around about 50 or 60, which we use as a father-son, and he nailed. And Cunningham has just been, dogged by injury. So you could argue he's gone 5 from 5 there. So, I mean, as I said,
you look at that 2015 as well. Half of that top 10 are no longer at their original club.
Shocking. Wiedemann gone, Shaki gone, and they all look pretty ordinary, whereas our boys look like they're staples in our team, and they all look fantastic. So I don't know, like how do you say, like, people anti-Sauce or they're not for Sauce? I understand that, but at the end of the day, like I feel that there are bigger factors in play that have stunted the growth and development of those players, and it all starts from the top at the end of the day, and that's my opinion. And we saw it, through 2018, 2019, when list management, when executive staff, when president, when board, when CEO are not all like this, what happens? Shit hits the fan and it's all done.
Mate, I mean, I think the big thing about Sauce, right? And this is what annoys me about draft periods. And I'm gonna pick on a mate of mine, Big Robbie here, right? Who's a massive Geelong fan, right? Yep. Now, I have a message here from him just after the draft, right? Okay. And he's gone... He's gone like this. This is 2016. Fuck me. Pick 14. And we take a Dogtanian-looking prick who happened to get 10 intercept marks for Geelong in the VFL. Quality drafting when some good players were on the board. Joke club, right? That was Geelong fan when they picked Tom Stewart up, right? As a mature age player, right? Little bit early to be fair, by most draft boards, because usually the older, mature players are about 50 after.
Yeah.
There was a few players that I know he had an interest on. Hindsight, right? If you go back to that 2016 draft, you would probably say Stewart would be top 5.
Yeah, so, I mean, exactly. Like, what do you say, mate? Like, it's just, you can't. It's easy to do, mate. It's easy to do. It's like you go back and say, last year, very elegant when she won the Melbourne Cup. She had to carry the most amount of weight, but she was still one of the best horses in the race. And I probably should have taken the $20 because she's probably the best horse in the race anyway. Well, like, it's easy to say, isn't it? So again, all these people are making informed decisions based on the IP and evidence, as you said, the raw data and analytics that they've got in front of them. And at the end of the day, it's all those picks that you take from maybe 40 onwards. I mean, a lot of them are speculative, but you've got systems in place to try to nail them. So, I'm over the talk of, we've got these players in now and we probably should have gone for him and probably should have gone for that. And that's done now. It's done. Charlie Curnow should have gone pick number 1 then, if that's the case. Why did he slide?
Mate, people complained about Charlie Curnow because, I mean, obviously, do you know what I mean? Drink driving a couple of days before the draft ain't the best look, is it?
No.
But he took a chance. And just to pick on Rob again, this was 2 hours after the Bowes deal. Take that, Pom, you big CUNT. Bet you wish you were a Cat fan. Trading in a good depth player and pick 7 for fuck all. Come on, Cats. So look how quickly it changes. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
3
exactly.
years ago, He wanted his list management sacked for picking the best player up.
Yeah.
And now he's getting big. And so, honestly, for me, I think Sauce did a good job. The list is there. Could we have won a flag with Bolton in charge? Probably not. So
No.
I think everything happens for a reason, and we will find out. So everyone,
spot on.
lay off Sauce. Do you know what I mean? Like,
and I think just to end that as well, I think, and we sort of spoke about this on SEN on the show, and after the trade period, you do all these reviews and all that, and I mean, you have these opinions, and you say, okay, well, why has this team got this player, and why have we picked up him? What's our need for this type of player? Then you look at it, but the thing is that you just don't know until they play, until the season plays out over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. You can't crystal ball that far. I mean, you can try. I mean, you've got long-term planning in place as executive strategies, long-term, medium, and short-term planning. But as fans and as pundits and as people who look at it on the periphery and on the outside, it's just wait and see, isn't it? And that's the beauty about it. We don't know.
Mate, covering the draft in depth like I do, it would be fucking easy if someone could come from 2026 now and go, Pom, this kid here, 42. Yeah, I mean, it would be great. But unfortunately, as my granddad used to say to me, son, I've got hairy balls, not crystal. It's impossible to change the future.
Exactly.
But next on the list, this is hotly oh, wait, what have I done? Next on the list, hotly contested, is this gentleman here, Mr. Legend himself, David Cunningham. So a lot of people have contacted me about this, and I'm asking the question, Cunners, is he the missing link or is it a false dawn? Everyone in the chat, let me know. Is he your best 22 round one? What's he got to do to prove it? If not, and fire away, Paolo.
Jeez, this is one of the toughest questions I think that's been asked in a postseason show. He is actually, I think you summed him up well. The man, the myth, the legend. He sort of, we kind of know he exists, but no one's actually physically seen him for the last year, which is a bit of a worry. But I think we know. I think he has talent, ball in hand, that is, in excess of most at our club. I would say when he actually has ball in hand and when he's traveling, on the deck, I think he's one of our better players. But the problem for him now is putting that into a consistent, patch of form. Whether or not that happens, I don't know. Is he a missing link for us? I think the half forward area is definitely something that we have to tinker with, clearly. And I think there is a massive opportunity for him to play maybe that sort of high half forward wingish role. I don't know what his numbers are on like a GPS or anything like that. We haven't really seen that this year, but he would seem to be a bloke who can, running out of game, I don't think would be too much of an issue for him. But then the case for him is that if they're going to play him in that type of role, in that high running role, is that going to put his, we would assume he's got a sort of fragile body, just given by what we've seen in the early part of his career. So this is an interesting one. Does he have the talent to play best 22, best 23 football? I would say yes, but you need more than that at the moment. You need, grit, determination. You need the fitness on your side, and I think you need a skill set to be able to slot into this team. So the fact that they have kept him around tells me that they think there is definitely something there because of all these injuries that he's had, or despite all these injuries he's had. But yeah, I think this year, saying speculative pick in the draft with Sauce, I think this is a speculative play from Nick Austin to say, well, we're not really going to be paying him much. He's got a year contract, and let's see what happens. So if he does well, good luck to him. But I can see him cracking the squad, definitely. Best 22 week in, week out, probably not.
He kind of gives me this year is going to be either the Will Setterfield type year, where we know he maybe showed a bit, but probably not enough. And Nick Austin goes, right, you know what? Screw it. Let's go after a kid. Yep. Or it's going to be the Zach Fisher year, where I would say, when we did this last year, everything everyone's saying to me now, is what you were saying about Zach Fisher. Is he best 22? He needs to be consistent, flash in the pan. He's had 2 good games, calm down. I feel that this is really where he is as a footballer now. I think you look at his GPS numbers from high half forward, particularly, especially in the Bolton times, they're pretty impressive.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? They're pretty impressive for that position. And you would say that he's probably looking at, he's a point of difference, isn't he? Let's be honest. He is a talented kid, but I always say this, you can't pick your best 22 on talent. You know what I mean? Like, it's like having $1 million worth of cryptocurrency. It's not fucking real money. Some nerd in a basement's made it up, and that's what Cunningham is at the moment. He is potentially $1 million footballer, but unfortunately, exactly like Chris says, consistency, and it's no good in being the most dynamic footballer at the football club if he's getting a massage to repair an ACL. You know what I mean? Like, might as well give that to someone else. So I think he is potentially best 22, but like, I need to see it from him because I think a fit firing Cunners potentially is that thing that breaks the Carlton stranglehold on finals. I think he is a finals player.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. And now it's just about, and as you said, like the club has backed it in and said, well, we'll give you a year. We're happy to. We'll let this run out. If you play well and you hold your spot in the team, so be it. And we'll give you a contract. If not, well, we move on and go and draft a player. Simple as that. So as I said, I think ball in hand, he's very special. And we've seen that, he's got a good eye for goal too. And he's a beautiful kick, but now it's just a case of actually trying to put it together, and that's the thing for him now. So I hope he does, because I actually really like him as a player. But whether or not he does or doesn't, we'll find out next season. But I'm happy for them to keep him on the list, and happy for him to have a crack at that half forward position, which is an area that we really need to get better in.
It's that injured position as well, isn't it? Because all the guys that have been trialled there, even Kemp, high half forward for the VFL, serial breakdowns. They get a run of continuity, and then just when you're like, this is it, something happens. Bang. Jack Martin. So, like, really, between all 3 of these guys, they've got to be saying, you know what, I'm going to sack the other one. There needs to be a little bit of hunger. So, important to see.
Spot on.
It's going to be an interesting one. But let's get to the exciting stuff, because I'm not a hypothetical guy. And we're going to talk about risking the future. And for now, for the 2023 pick. So this comes off the back of Kane Corns. Mr. Kane Corns made a statement this week saying that really Carlton had a quite successful trade period. All the places are in place, but they must be aiming to win the flag in the next 3 seasons for it to be a success. So I wanted to see at first initial impressions before we get into the crux of it. What would you guys say about missing out in the first round next year?
As in missing out from a draft perspective? Yeah. It's an interesting one, because I think if we go with this year, I think we've got enough picks in there to suggest that, okay, well, these guys that come in now could potentially have an influence on your list, because there's some pretty decent guys in there. But I'm always adamant that even if you are doing well, I think you can still hold your draft hand in the first round and still do well in your season, if that makes sense. And I think if we hold our first round pick for next season, I think we'll be okay. But even conversely, I think if we can find our way up in the draft this year, and it means we risk something for next season, I'm happy with that. But it's more about, okay, well, if we look at the underage players coming into the system next year, you just don't know how strong and how quick the development of these players from now until next season is going to be. So it's a risk. It has to be a calculated risk. But I think we'd be looking at it and saying, okay, well, what positions do we need? Our next year's draft, are we going to be able to find players outside of the first round that we can fill needs with on our list? Or is it going to be a case of, no, we need to make a move early in the draft and we need to have a strong hand in the first round because there's this and this player that we need early on to fill this spot in the list, because we might have aging players down in the back line or in the midfield or across the forward line. So it's just a case of calculating it. And I think for us now, I don't think it would be. I think either way, I don't think it would be an issue to be perfectly fair.
Well, I mean, I agree. So, I mean, obviously, what I've done is we've gone a little bit early. I've done you some draft profiles based on Carlton finishing
Love
top
it.
6. So
Love
this
it.
is very, very early doors. But the players that you would maybe say based on what is logical they pick up this year, right, and what would leave the holes in the list would probably allude that they're probably going to be a key forward or maybe a key backman out
Yep.
of pocket. So these are potentially players that if the draft was done now, where you'd probably have a wee Luke, as they say back home. I mean, you've got Mitch Edwards there, Peel Thunderboy, quality tall, very strong forward, a guy that has got some real nice facets. And I reckon at the moment he's probably the 20th best prospect. He'll probably go up
Yep.
because he's already been touted to play in the seniors at 17. Do you know what I mean? Very, very good little player. Archer Reed is a really exciting one. Absolutely killed the current draft class in interclubs. So that's something very exciting to watch out for. If you're doing that at 17, you're going to be a little bit tasty, aren't you? And Logan Morris is the other one. Real strong full forward. The Jets get a lot of love from the Pommy. And this one might be a top 10 pick. So these are probably likely, like a lot of people, and there's a misconception. It really winds me up. Everyone's saying next year's draft is really good. One, no way you can say that because I heard in 2020, everyone told me 21 was good and better than 20. And the year before that, the difference is that the top 5 in this are really, really elite talent. A really elite talent where you would say, based on averages, this year's club craft, I would say is above average across the board. It just hasn't got that game-breaking talent that other drafts have had. So I personally look next year and think there's nothing really. There's a lot of midfielders, but Carlton, I think if we're honest, that's our strong position. Don't need an inside midfielder. Do you know what I mean? We don't need an outside midfielder because Akers should work and take whoever's picked 10. So for me, do you know what I mean? These players here, you've got to, if you're Nick Austin, you're offsetting it with these type of players are going to take 2 or 3 years anyway to break into the seniors.
Correct.
I could get a head start now and take one today and know that I'm going to be a year in front. So that's where I come from it. That's my mentality in these type of things.
Yeah, no, I agree with that too. And I don't think that, again, and I keep coming back, it's to what you actually need as a team and what you need to fit in under your list demographic with regards to, you know, the spots that you value on your list and the spots that you value on the field as well. And I think for us now too, it's not a case of, just because we give up maybe a couple of picks in the first round or we give up, you know, we might have a couple more picks in this first round than we do next year. We might have no picks in the first round next year. It still doesn't absolve you from winning and being successful. And that's the difference. You know, list management has to put things in place to set you up for now, for the medium term and for the long term as well. So they're always seeking about that. And, you know, you hope that they're doing their due diligence with regards to that. But again, I think to sum it up, the development that you're going to get from the guys now who are going to be in the draft class next year, it could completely change. It could, in 6 months or 6 to 8 months, it could turn into, holy moly, hang on. Wait, we've got 10 to 15 blokes who have just come from nowhere in their TAC Cup season. And this is going to be one of the strongest drafts we've seen in the last 10 to 15 years. And then that's where your list management needs to think on its feet and think, okay, well, what can we do to try to bolster our way up into the draft to try and maybe get a bloke like this and maybe pinch 1 or 2 players that we think have really moved up the draft order. So there's so much that goes into it. I mean, again, you're crystal balling from now until, you know, the back end of next year to try to predict, you know, how a bloke from 16 to 17 to 18 is going to develop. Good luck. Just go play a touch lotto ticket.
Mate, it's tough. And what I want everyone to get their mindset in is just say that these 3 here, I'd imagine Nick Austin has a similar thing to me, a draft board for next year. look at the talent here and go, right, I could risk Mitch Edwards not getting much better, not getting into the top 10 out of where we're going to be, because we're aiming for top 4.
Yeah.
So that's what we're aiming for. I could come this time next year. Mitch Edwards has killed it. He's now picked 2 in the draft. I've lost out on that. So he's got to look at that, like Paolo's saying, lottery ticket time. Is he risking these? It could even be like Tom Scully, who this time last year was 18th in the order, currently 45 to 55. And you could argue, if you were looking at him as your potential 2022 draftee, you'd be like, oh, well, fuck, I've got pick 14 now. It's useless because I can get him at 40.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's doing that. So let's just have a look. Today, Cal Toomey, God bless him, has done a thing about Carlton. And nice for him to watch this show, because when he brought the news that Carlton were going to go up the draft board, this little old Pom said probably doesn't mean getting higher than 10. Probably means he's trying to find something between 10 and 29. Now, Cal Toomey believes that's what Nick Austin meant. So that's good that they don't take everything literally. So the benefits of doing it now to us. So what I'm proposing here is using the leverage of the draft to try and get in the 20s, right? Now, these are the type of players that are probably, if you do the draft order, between 15 and our next pick, 29. So I've made a cutoff at 25. So these are the 3 type of players that they could get. You've got on your right to left, a ruck forward, David Cunningham, very fit, natural goal kicking small in Jacob Constanti. And on the left, you've got probably a guy like Mitch McGovern with pace, clean bill of health, very strong aerial grab, a little bit of sex appeal. So potentially, if Carlton could get another pick there, they could fill a hole very quickly. Like just initially, Paolo.
Yeah.
What's this saying to you and the chat?
Yeah, I think, look, and this is where, from our perspective, and this is where we've been looking at the draft as well for this season. And I think that the beauty about it is that you look at these players, and I don't think it's, I mean, we don't know if they're going to be absolute guns, but a lot of them are just going to come in, and a lot of them are, and you were saying it last week as well, that a lot of these guys are going to come in and do a job, if that makes sense. So I think from our perspective now is that players who come in and that we could potentially pick up in the draft this year, I think can actually come in and have an immediate impact on the team. That's what I personally think. So feedback Australian players get picked.
Should do. Mate, they should do. I do use sexy a lot. Yeah, all right. It probably says more about how long I've been married than anything else. But I mean, this is something that what I wanted to talk about here is that, and this leads me on to very coolly, why target high picks, incentives to target. Now, who are we targeting? So there's a few little examples I want to give you based on next year, right? Looking at what other AFLs does. In the top 40 talents, Sydney have 3 academy players, right? So Sydney, straight away, you could earmark as, you know what, you're probably going to need picks next year. So, right, you also look at Sydney, I'm going to pick on, because they've got 4 picks and at the moment only 2 senior list spots, right? So there's another incentive that would allude to me that they may do. GWS, interesting, have 3 players in the top 50 that play in their catchment area as well. Now, GWS have 4 senior list spots at the moment, which again would allude that the value to them next year based on their list needs as well is incredibly high in that top 20, probably higher than Carlton's because ours is younger, which would suggest that Carlton aren't going to keep going to the draft because they've got quite a young core there. So this is why the incentives are high, and it's why to always have a good knowledge on next year's draft, because sometimes I come up with these wonderful theories and they come true, and it's because you try and look what the list manager's doing. If the list manager knows, fuck, there's 3 Sydney Academy players next year, I better have some picks next year. Suddenly that's what Nick Austin's going to use to leverage. So
Exactly.
I think this year, if you look in the top 30, there is about 8 players in the top 30 that instantly make Carlton's list incredibly stable, which I would think all the chat agree, and you, Paolo, it's unstable at the minute because our second 22 have niggles. Our second 22 are hit and miss getting on the park. If they can find 4 players that are next best 22 at worst, huge dub.
Yeah, I'm just before I get to that, I'm just going to channel my inner Mikel Arteta and turn the light bulb on in my room because it's getting a bit dark in here. There we go.
Mate, I thought it was just. I thought it was.
I want to see you play with passion, with energy, with connection. Now, I think picking out Sydney is perfect because they have a situation where they have those. What do they have? Do they pick 15 and 18 or pick 14 and 17? What's their draft hand again? They have those 2 late picks.
Yep. 14, 17, 42, and 75.
So what I would be doing potentially is I would be looking at it and saying Sydney is the perfect team to do a deal with to try to get up in the draft order in between that 10 to 29 frame. And it could be a case of, I think the club would be saying, well, if we are targeting flying up the ladder next season, which just has to be the target, you would say, okay, well, our future first round pick, if we really look at it and if we achieve our goals next season, will be anywhere between, 18 to that sort of 14, 13 marker. And we'd say, okay, well, let's maybe trade that off and let's see if we can get Sydney's, one of Sydney's first round picks this season. And then from that end, we can use our pick 10, we can use 14 and 17, and then we can use our other picks to get, okay, well, we've got 3 or 4 blokes inside the top 35. It's exactly what we needed to do. Sydney's happy. Carlton's happy. We pick up some blokes who we think can have an immediate impact on the list. They're fresh players, clean bill of health, and we go from there. So I think Sydney is the perfect team to target because they would also be looking at it too and saying, well, from our perspective, okay, we have these academy players we need to get points for, but conversely as well is that we're in a window where we might need some experienced players as well. So those first round picks that we have might not exactly necessarily be what we need right now too. So I think that would be the team to target, and it probably looks like that will be the team we try to hit up a deal with regards to like pick swapping on draft night.
Mate, spot
and that'll continue to happen. That'll just happen. Like that pick swapping on draft night, you're going to see more and more and more of that because that's sort of an American thing that's happened, with their drafting systems with NFL and in the NBA, and you're going to start to see that IP and that mode of sort of swapping and picking up different picks. That's going to start to become a real theme in the AFL, I think, in the next 5 to 7 years.
Mate, I'd also, Adrian, just to confirm, I'm not suggesting that. I'm suggesting a future pick. So 10 will definitely stay. I would say 10 is the stickler. I wouldn't be opposed if Ollie Hollands is there, who is presumed, and I presume is Carlton's primary target as a failsafe. I would say that if he doesn't go and they get inclination of where 11 and 12 are going to go, 11's a risk, though, because I do think the Doggies do need a winger, so Ollie Hollands would be gone. The team I wanted to talk about as well, and back onto your live trading, Collingwood have been very, very heavy, and they were very public in trying to get 18 and 19. Now, there's a reason Collingwood want 18 and 19, because that is right where Hayes and Jefferson should be, and it suits their list demographic massively. I would say that if some surprises happen, 25 and 27 for them may totally change their draft hand, because I suspect a lot of the players that they're targeting, but based on the movement and innuendo, suggests to me that Pies may miss out and may be left with a choice of focusing tall forward or defender in pick 16. And based on how the combine's gone, a lot of these talented third toes have really shone, which would say to me that there may be a chance as well that Carlton go to Collingwood and go, look, the guys you want aren't there. We're more than happy to give you a bite at next year's cherry, for some of these pitches, which I think, again, is something to watch. But that's why I want you to just try and keep an eye out. There's a lot of good articles on 2023. Go and look at the opposition's list. Try and get yourself into a head manager, because a lot of people say, what's a future worth? Well, if you've got academy players who happen to be, like 2 of them, 3 at Sydney, are top 15 at the minute, which is a lot of draft picks.
Correct.
So that's how you try and build the value. And if you look in the 30s to 40s this year, a lot of New South Wales talent as well, which they would be very interested in.
Yeah, and I think we saw it come up during last week when sort of Jason McCartney mentioned that these teams are going to be looking at trying to pick up blokes who are actually from the region as well, because we've seen what happened with Horn Francis too. So I think from our perspective now, it's a case of, look, I think from what we're looking at in our area and the picks that we want to look at, I think the only thing that we would be looking towards maybe trying to build our draft hand in the future with is, and I think we mentioned it a couple of weeks ago when we were on, is, these Campriali twins. You don't know how well they're going to develop at the moment. They look like they're going to be decent players. Do we need to get a draft hand to potentially go out for these, because we've got a host of father-sons that are sort of coming through the ranks who could be half decent. Whether or not we, bolster our draft hand with future picks to potentially facilitate moves for those kids, that's just a wait and see. But again, it is all to do with how these players develop in the next sort of 2 to 3 years. And that's a waiting game. If they're happy to take the gamble and they've seen enough, well, fair enough, we back that in. But, it'd be a bit of a risk from now to be doing stuff like that for the next 2 to 3 years. So I think from next year's perspective, I think where we sit at the moment, I think our hand is nice because we'll be able to make a decision either way, which is great. Having those 2 decisions in hand, I think, is good. Whether we can bolster our pick in the draft this year, bolster our picks in the top 35 this year, we can. Or if we want to hold on and say, okay, well, there are a couple of players who were slid that we can't get, so let's have a dip next year. So to have both is good.
Mate, spot on. And like you say, we've got like 2 years. So it's 2024's draft, the Camparelli twins come in. So
exactly.
I can tell you, looking at 2023's draft class, there's about 12 kids who have fallen off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
When it was under 16s, where the Camparellis are now, were being touted as potentially top 5 picks. Yeah. And you've got to just put yourself, not being sexist, and I can say that because I'm going to slag men off. And just think back to when you were a 16 to 17-year-old boy.
Yeah, absolutely.
How many distractions suddenly came into your life? And I know what you're all thinking. Yes, Pom was addicted to Pokemon cards, mate. Honestly, absolutely distracted. Would have been Tiger Woods, but they got in the way. Do you know what I mean? Nothing shenanigans. But now we're talking about keeping it the same. So we've talked about potentially what you could do. But is it a disaster if Carlton take 10 and 29 as our premium picks? And we've got a few scenarios here. So a lot of people, for some reason, the media make it sound like it's a disaster if Carlton go. So we're going to talk about the mid picks. Now, the mid picks here are traditionally, a little stat for you, the last 10 flag winning sides have had at least 2 players, right, who have played all their games from later than 35, which is huge. Now, your statistics are finding one is slim, but great teams, Geelong are masters of it. Richmond are very good at it. Pick up players. And what they do is they do something called, they do a skills-based acquisition program. So what they're looking for is excellent players at certain facets. So I've tried to get into Austin's head, right?
Yep.
So I've seen a lot of people talk about Ruckman, right? Yep. Potentially Harry Barnett, far right. Great name as well because it's Pom for haircut, Barnett. Probably the best ruck in the draft this year. Scheduled to go anywhere between 25 and 35, depending on what you want. So Carlton may look at this. Now, the reason I think, and people are going to disagree with me here, you can't have 4 ruckmen on your list. Carlton currently have 3. Pitternet, TDK, and Murkoff, right? You can't have 4. It's way too much waste. And all 3 of them don't care what Kane Corns and Sauce are suggesting, it would be negligent from Carlton to train TDK to be a key defender. Absolutely negligent when they don't have the depth in that position and rookieing one or drafting one. Harry Barnett, as good as he is, 2 to 3 years away. Do you know what I mean? 2 to 3 years away. But Barnett has a string to his bow, a very effective as a key forward. So could potentially be very early doors that backup because he does have strong goal kicking nous. Charlie Clark is around these picks as well. This guy is sexual. He is the antichrist to Durden. He's a pure goal kicking forward. Very nippy, very exciting. Jackson Binns, exciting type player, rising up the draft board.
Yeah, like
anywhere between 25 and 35. And Ed Allen is an interesting one. Claremont boy. We like a Western Australian who's a late bolter. The last Western Australian who was a late bolter Carlton had an option to pick. Patrick Cripps. Very similar size and shape to this boy. This kid's probably a bit quicker, but someone that has gone up about 30 positions in the AFL draft in the last month. Someone who is exciting, very exciting.
Yeah, I think you're spot on about Harry Barnett as well, and our ruck stocks too. I think that the fact that TDK, I think the way that we would play him too as a ruck is more to say, well, when you are getting back, it's more that pinch hit that Max Gawn does. So getting back for a handful of minutes just to chop out the defense sort of late in the quarter. So I think that's when he's sort of at his best. And we saw that against Sydney a handful of times earlier this season too. And I think Charlie Clark is the epitome of what, and you were mentioning this too, and you can start to see it. You know, I think we're starting to see it in the next, or we've seen it in the last year or two, is that it seems that the competition, maybe this is because of the 666 rule, that's how it could be, but small forwards, we're starting to see a little bit of a creep away from pure pressure and defensive and manic defensive pressure. And now we're starting to see, okay, well, look at the top small forwards in the league. They just have a pure eye for goal. Stengel and Jack Ginnivan, not really known for their defensive nous or their defensive craft, not from a numbers perspective anyway. And Charlie Clark, I think, fits that bill too. And I think Richmond did a great job with how they picked up these blokes. And you said it before as well in this particular area, is that you can pick up these guys and they can have an immediate effect. You know, I think the one for me that I really like out of this is Jackson Binns. I have to do a bit more research on Ed Allen, but Jackson Binns, I think, is, if he's there with that pick and they think, well, okay, we can maybe nab him, I'd be going for him. I think the two there are Jackson Binns and Charlie Clark. Those are the two that we really, really need.
Yeah, for me, I've done it kind of in, I mean, like for me, I've put the ruck there as an option because I know that, and I agree with a couple of comments here. Josh, I agree with Josh. He's spot on. I think at the moment our tall forwards are really poor. And I agree with Lou here. We have two ruckmen, but the fact is Murkoff's there. So he's taking up a list spot. And list spots at the moment, we've got 5 senior spots if we rookie Ed. So there's a lot of risk. So for me, I think Harry Barnett is out purely on the fact of if Carlton did take a ruck, it would be someone like Crossley. But I will say, watch this space. If Pitternet and TDK don't kick on this year, particularly Pitternet, I can see Pitternet being jettisoned and Carlton handle it, because the model for the AFL is a Murkoff-type ruckman project, someone TDK's age, and a 28-year-old. And it has been that model in list management since the last 30 years. And it never changes, and there's a reason. Ruckman are one-dimensional. The talk about TDK becoming a full-time defender baffles me. I don't know what Sauce has been drinking, but I don't like it. If Carlton would be mental to do that. But I think Jackson Binns, for me, perfect chance. Outside run, can play forward as well. And this is where people are getting excited at the moment about him, because he went forward for Vic Country and Stingrays in the end of the year. Absolutely took the piss. So lightning quick. So probably my favourite with Paolo there. Let us know in the comment who your favourite is. And this is where I think Carlton can get very sexy.
Correct.
Right? Tom Scully has been one of my favourite players in this draft since last year. And every time I see him fall, I get a bit excited because this kid here, few issues with his size, and this is where the AFL is stuck in the 70s, right? The AFL, all the punditry, that they're the fat old guys with baseball, with flat caps and a pen, and they're writing down their favorite players on the back of a cigarette packet. Absolute nonsense. The AFL doesn't do gut instinct and your eye. You've got to back it up. This guy's natural ability is impeccable. He is somewhere between Charlie Curnow and Harry Mackay. Strong in the air, quick like lightning. Do you know what I mean? He's silky. He's a very, very, very good kick at goal as well. Beautiful set shot. Carlton fans will love him as well because he has a penchant to take off from a mark. So you'll love that. It's going to be the same to us. And for me, someone who's slipped down, and I think, speaking to defenders, particularly Domaku, and the way that Harry and Charlie spend so much time with forwards, helping them out and teaching them the secrets, which has made Dom a better forward and a defender. I think Tom Scully's destined for blue. You've heard it. I know no male. I've just got a feeling you are looking at the next blue bagger there.
Okay, interesting. So why has he slipped down? Because of his size?
Yeah, his coach basically asked why he wasn't playing seniors, and they were like, oh, look at him. He's not put on much size this year. But I've seen him play reses, right, against men. Now, if you ever watch the Sandful, reserve Sandful is like literally guys who turn up just to get a free beer on a Friday. Like, he holds his own. And there's a lot of players that were like him that didn't put much meat on during their draft year who now have flown to stardom. A great example would be Max King, who didn't play at all.
Yeah.
Right? But they put him on a pure protein diet. And there was a lot of talk when St. Kilda drafted him. Oh, he's fucking well undersized and he's done his ACL. And he didn't train that year in the seniors, but they kept feeding him and putting him on a nutrition program. When he came into the IFL, very tight player. Tom Scully, for me, absolutely brilliant.
Okay, I like it. The interesting one for me is Harvey Gallagher because he's played a handful of games with the Northern Blues, with the Carlton VFL team, which is really intriguing. It gives me the sense that we are interested in a type of player like him from Bendigo. I think he's a Pioneers boy, isn't he? Yeah, Pioneers. Yeah,
he is indeed.
Yeah. So he's one that sort of stands off the page just because it looks like we are interested in.
Now, the huge plus of this guy as well, you didn't really see it in the VFL because Carlton played him out in the pocket.
Mm-hmm.
One of the top 10 out of all the juniors for kicking efficiency. Do you know what I mean?
There you go.
So this kid's ball use. So if we're going with, do you know what I mean? If we're going with like actual buying players based on their skill set, he ticks the bill. He knows that he knows the company. Do you know what I mean? He knows what we're about. And the third one's Hugh Davis, who, for me, someone said he doesn't look ready for AFL Rio. He looks like if you went to Aldi and got Ed Sheeran, I always think.
He's got a bit of Josh Boothmer about him.
Oh, no. I can't have him now.
I think Harvey Gallagher, if you mentioned that kicking efficiency there, it seems to pertain well for the way we play our ball retention strategy. With the short kicking and trying to hold on to the ball. So I think the skill set there looks like it could suit Voss's game plan and Voss's needs. So I think that's what you'll start to see, with Voss if he's keeping a very similar game plan, which I mean they all tinker and everything, but if he's going to keep it similar, he's obviously going to be picking players who he thinks can play through that as well. Obviously. So if his skill set is quite good, it would make sense if Harvey Gallagher was to be picked up.
Probably would have been a shout for our picks in our 60s. However, this guy has been rumoured to have met with just about half of the AFL. So you would say, I think there'll be 52 picks used in this AFL draft this year. So that brings us on to my next reason. And a lot of you have asked these questions. I've starred a few comments. But just to put it in perspective, Chris wants to talk about this. Mitch Wallace, who else did we had a few more. Loads of you asked about delisted players.
Sydney Stack.
Yeah, to answer Chris's question, second chances. Now, I want to put something out here to you guys, right? When you're picking up older players, so Mitch Wallace is the one in question.
Mm-hmm.
Just bearing in mind, the average AFL club every year delists 3.8 players. So that's an average. They obviously don't cut a guy in 0.8, but 3.8, just under 4 players, right? Have a game with me. Name me. I'll make it easy. Name me 10 players who have been delisted by an AFL club, not traded, delisted, and played more than 50 games. You won't be able to do it, right? That's a clue to how hard it is. So for me, when you're picking these players, the highest success rate in the AFL of players who have gone on to play more games are under 23 years old and have played senior games. That's the caveat. Have played senior games. I don't mean 1, 2. I mean actually have physically played football games. And they've been delisted once. Never twice, never 3 times, just once. And the success rate there is a reason. It's incredibly naive to think AFL clubs make mistakes. Very rare. It's rare as rocking horse shit. It's rare as rocking horse shit in AFL, NBA, EPL, every sport you can think of. It's so rare, no matter how bad an organization is, they sack a player, delist them effectively, and they become a superstar. Very rare. So what you're looking at here, going to help you out, is under 23s, under 23-year-olds.
Yeah, I would say almost 0.
You know what I mean? Mate, you'd be right. I mean, at the moment, the only one in recent memory that is going incredibly well is Jared Loynes. Big Jared Loynes.
Yeah, from at Brisbane. I think he played reserves towards the back end of the year, though.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, the big thing with him is technically the Gold Coast deal doesn't really count because it was a mutual delisting as well.
Okay, right. There you go.
That Gold Coast complained to the AFL that he was pretty much in talks with them and deliberately asked for a ridiculously high deal.
Okay, right. Okay, yeah.
So it's one of them things. So, like, there it is. But there is a few players, though, that are worthy. I'm going to read them out, and everyone in the chat, and you just keep a mental note when you hear one. But these are the type of players that have confirmed they will put their hand up for PSD. Jake Arts, Callum Brown, Tyler Brown, Riley Collier-Dawkins, Danny Howe, Quinton Narkle, I shudder at the thought, Eli Smith, Sydney Stack, Francis Evans, Liam Stocker, James Rowe, Brett Turner, Dylan Williams, Martin Frederick, Jez McLennan, Connor Blakely, Jake Steen, great name, Oscar Baker, Jackson Nelson, and Patrick Naish. So, Carlton maybe could pick up 1, maybe 2. Any names there that turn you on?
None really turned me on, to be honest. But I mean, maybe. I mean, the only one that you could maybe make a case for might be Sydney Stack. But, you know, I think initially when it sort of got mentioned and people around the Carlton traps were saying, oh, yeah, maybe we should go after him. I thought, my initial thought was, nah, don't want him. But I don't know, maybe the club would just, I know he's obviously had some off-field things and, you know, the COVID drama with him sort of up there in Queensland with I think he was going to get a kebab and he had a fight. I mean, who hasn't got a kebab and started a fight? You know,
mate, grew up in Glasgow. What do you think I did?
So you know,
I mean, to be honest,
I think you got to back your systems in if you're going to pick up a player with a little bit of a pass and all that. But I'd be passing on these guys. I just don't see the point in it. I'd rather be going to get a young kid.
To be honest, Sydney Stark, I thought that was just a fucking Friday night. I can't believe you get fined for that in this country. I mean, like, if I was the coach, I'd be fining my players for not getting into scuffles in kebab shops. I'm like, what do you mean you got your chicken and chips and didn't nut someone? But no, for me, I'm with you. Like, there's some of the names there, like Mitch Robinson, as Angelo mentions here. Do you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't want to, but like, honestly, the guy can't kick over a jam tin. Do you know what I mean? Like, Like we've got to, and David Redbear here. This is when people are saying no to Sydney Stack, right? Think of this, right? Think of this. I did this last year with you guys and girls, and Terry ran a poll. When I found that poll, 74% of you said no to Tyson Stengel, right?
Oh.
Right. The reason being because of his past. Now, Carlton have made a lot of publicity on the positivity of how good the culture is. Now, a good culture does two things, right? One, the players then will be regimented in their belief system, which means if Sydney Stack is a wild boy, which I don't really think he's wild when the evidence is he broke curfew, he was quite public, he didn't think COVID was a real problem, and he thought that it was stupid. And he's quite public on TikTok, which a lot of players are.
Reckon just quietly has been vindicated in his decision, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, if that influences our list is probably the softest list in the history of AFL.
Agreed.
Right? Because Sydney Stark should have no influence on our leaders. But
Correct.
Two, don't you think it works the other way? Right? And I'm going to use an example. Charlie Curnow used to piss about a bit. Now he is very focused and switched over to that mindset. A lot of talk about that. A lot of talk about Charlie Curnow's change. Ed Curnow's mentioned it, that his brother's chalk and cheese. Harry Mackay's mentioned it in his interview, his mindset shift. Patrick Cripps has mentioned it in his Brownlow speech.
Yep.
A lot of these players here very quickly will either jettison him for a year. So I don't mind. Stack is the only name on that list I wouldn't mind, because I feel he is good. I remember James Rowe as well, honestly, and Adelaide delisted him for the reasons I said that Corey Durden was better. Corey Durden knows what a tackle is. But the big thing there is what I'm saying is, for me, when you buy delisted free agents, you can't look at it. And before anyone says Stocker, not going to happen. That's 100% guaranteed. Stocker will not be rookied by Carlton Football Club.
No. Isn't the reason he left because we wanted to rookie him, but he wanted to have a spot on the senior list? Wasn't that the gist, I think, or something like that?
I don't, to be honest, when you leave my football club and keep doing radio interviews, I switch off. Do you know what I mean? Get on the training track and get back on a senior list. That is my mentality. But yes, he's 22. So that is it. And unfortunately, no Ruckman. But that is the question time. And you brought some really good questions into him. I'm going to double these ones up. Thomas and Bechelli. I hope I haven't massacred
Bechelli. It's pronounced it's like it's with a K. Bechelli.
Bechelli. You see, I hate doing the Italian accent. It sounds like I'm mocking you.
No, it's good. It's good.
Hey, there you are. Look, I got a good from a real Italian. And
Love
do
it.
we keep TDK and Mighty Blues? Murkoff hasn't played a senior game. He's a bust as a ruckman. Pitter's orange. We need a ruckman. Now, Paolo, what are your thoughts? Do Carlton desperately need a ruckman?
No.
Oh, I like
that. No. I mean, well, look at it. You've got Pitt. People saying Pitt. How is Pitternet always injured? He had a collision injury.
Well, I mean, old Darcy took him out, didn't he?
Yeah, it was a collision injury. Okay, so forget about that. You know, TDK is still young and developing and showed some pretty good signs this year. Murkoff is still very raw. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen... Have you ever seen any rookie, Category B rookie ruckman who played volleyball for like 5 years come in his first senior season of AFL and play 10 games? No. That's a development project. So we've got Pitternet, we've got TDK, we've got chop outs in potentially Young and Jack Silvani. I don't see the issue.
Mate, I mean, to me, the only way that I'd bring a ruck on this list is if you got one and you got me a 29, 30-year-old type player who, I mean, like if there was, like I said this at the start of the year, at the start of the trade period, if Gold Coast had come to me and said, look, we'll swap a 4th for a 3rd, Pitternet for Wits.
Yep.
I'd be like, okay, cool. Wits will be a year. And look at the improvement when Stephen Martin worked with Timmy English.
Spot on.
But for me, watch this space. This is Pom's big call in 2022, right? Clip this. I reckon next year, the breaker of Pitternet will be on his way out of Fremantle. And I think that is when Carlton may have a sniff. I've got a feeling Mr. Darcy will want to leave. Want to leave free on next year.
Interesting.
And we'll bring the big fella in.
Okay.
No mail, just gut.
Okay, yeah, like it. Nice.
This is one of the most asked questions that I have had.
No.
Rats, would you bring him back?
No.
Sorry, fella. You went full freaking Andy Tate on me. No, was. Not for me. No.
No.
You're on the wrong show if you want Carlton sentiment. Do you know what I mean? I'm the least sentimental ever. Do you know what I mean? Person of the world. Like, my wife tells me off because when my kids have them horrible pictures that they brought home and they're on the thing, I walk past them and chuck them in the bin because I'm like, what's that shit? So, do you know what I mean?
No star for you today.
Yeah, Johnny, what's the shite? But I do wish Ratton very well.
Of course we do. Of course we do.
I am a fan, but not for me. No, I'm not a sentimental guy. Paolo and audience, if you had to, who is your breakout 2023 player from Carlton?
Ooh, great question. Haven't looked this far ahead yet. Who did I have? I had someone actually. Oh God. No, I'm gonna have to leave you on that.
Paolo, man.
I'm just trying to think. Breakout player this year. Oh, Brody Kemp.
Ooh. Paolo? Well, while Paolo reconnects, he's there. Paolo? See Paolo's bum there. Jack Carroll, I've gone with. We're nearly finished. I'll see if we can get Paolo back. I'm not too sure what it is. These ones here. Chat, help me out with this. Pommy, do you think we need small forwards? I agree. Does everyone in the chat think we need more small forwards? I would like some more small forwards. One that's more aggressive. I think we've got 2 defensive ones in Owes and Durden. I don't think you can go ahead with that long term. And I think Motlop is the perfect hybrid. Defends well and attacks well. I'd like one pure goal kicking. I don't know what everyone else thinks. I agree with George here. Missing link there, I think. Spot on. Would you all agree with that, chat? I think we've lost Paolo. And let's have a prediction. We'll finish with this one. How many games do we all think Paddy Dow will play? Paddy Dow. I'll buy the beers. Beers are on this. I'm going to say 7 games. 7 games. Helena 8. Bugsbow 0. 5. 22 in the second. Oh, Jordan. I think he's back. There you are.
I don't know what the hell. I think the internet just chopped out then. Good Lord.
It's all right. You froze on a close-up of your bum. We're just asking, if you were a betting man, which I know you are, how many games is Dow playing?
What, in the VFL or AFL?
You can't cheat. AFL.
The same as this year, 2 or 3 if he's lucky. Can I change my player? Can I change my burst out player for next season? That was the player I said. It wasn't Brody Kemp. It was Jordan Boyd. Sorry.
Ooh, that was quite popular in chat.
Love what I saw from him this year.
That was popular in the chat. The 3 that were popular were Carroll, Boyd, and Kemp. So I like that. Bugspell, I said 7. Got to remember injuries. Do you know what I mean? And you've also got to remember super sub. I've got a feeling that because of the extended bench now, the rumours are the AFL are going to extend the bench, right, on the rotation to keep the rotation the same, but have an extra on the bench to try and alleviate this cheat in that. I reckon we'll see him get a few pinch hit games. So just got a feeling, but wish him the best. But that is all we've got time for. I've gone over 10 minutes,
Yep.
but because Terry's not here, I do what I want.
Who cares? Stuff it.
Don't care. What's he going to do? He's out on the
little bit.
beers with his brother.
Little bit extra. Oh, is he really? Oh, it's all right.
It's his brother's birthday. Very happy birthday. Tell you what, we'll finish with this one, 'cause I like this one. Everyone in the chat and you, Paolo, if Hollins and Humphrey are there, who are you taking?
Well, I've been a big rap for Humphreys, and that's purely because I don't think Hollins is going to be there. If that makes sense, that's been my mindset. But if Hollins is there, I'd be going with Hollins.
I'm going Humphreys. I'm going to stick fat with my boy. I love a bit of Humphrey.
Love it.
And
Love
I'll
it.
piss Charlie Curnow off if we sign there. I'll be like, who's he? But that is all we've got time for. Everyone, much love. We will be back next week. Make sure you check out Paolo Overnight Crowd.
I'm on
tell
tonight.
Us about it, Paolo.
I'm on tonight actually from 11 till 3. So SEN, I'll be on there doing just anything really. It's AFL, it's EPL, it's NRL, it's everything. So call in if you want to have a chat. There's plenty going on. I'm doing the SEN Premier League show over the weekends as well, which has been good fun. Been anchoring that, doing all the pre-game previews and the halftime analysis, full-time analysis for all the games, and it's been super fun watching my mighty Gooners venture up towards the top of the Premier League table, which has been great. So yeah, SEN Overnight Crowd 11 to 3 most nights is when I'm on. So call up, text in, away you go, taking over.
Mate, it's a very good show. Every so often as well, there is a sexy pom.
Yes.
Accent. So if you're having insomnia or anything, you want to hear Carlton Butter, get on there. But no, it's a very good show. We're very proud of you, Paolo.
Thank you.
You are now a celebrity. Thank you for spending time with a minion like myself.
Now, I don't forget where I came from or what's built everything up. So pleasure doing it with you again, and I'm sure we'll hear you on the airwaves of 11:16 a.m. tonight. I reckon. Just quietly. There's plenty to get through from a Premier League perspective, I reckon.
Soundtrack of insomnia. Do you know what I mean? Soundtrack of insomnia. But much love, everyone. We will see you next week. I may be back or it may be Terry, but if not, one of us will be here. But much love, everyone. Go Blues.